The purpose of these lessons is to show you the logic behind the most basic Chinese characters, beginning with the simplest pictograms, and later combining these elements to create more complex characters. Today's lesson is based on the arrow, a symbol among many peoples throughout history for accuracy, truth, and the taking of an oath. During the Ming Dynasty, for example, Mongol chieftains would leave an arrow in the hands of Chinese officials they were visiting, as a sign of having made a promise. Arrows broken in two, or even stuck in the ground, were also symbols of a solemn promise having been given. Notice the English expression, straight as an arrow, meaning either to move in a straight direction, or, when referring to people, honest and straightforward. Our first character, therefore, is the pictograph of an arrow pointing upward. Pronounced third tone, shi, shi. Our first expression is a literary one, meaning to swear an oath, shi yan. It's not common in the spoken language, but is an example of the notion of speaking directly and truthfully. Actually, arrows are not an everyday topic of conversation, but this particular character appears in several idioms, one of which is 众矢之的, meaning the target of public censure or attacks. The first character, 众, is another new one, so I'll introduce it now. Pronounced fourth tone, 众, 众. This character began as three people standing, then added the sun above to indicate country folk standing and tilling the soil under a hot sun. As time went on, the sun was misinterpreted as an eye, keeping watch over peasants toiling in the fields. Notice there's another variant with extra strokes that appears in some font styles. Today this character means many or numerous, the masses, a crowd, or simply the public. Here are some example sentences. 他不小心说话，成为众矢之的. He was attacked from all sides for his careless remarks. 公众 is a noun which means the public. 公众不在意影星的品性. The public pays scant attention to the morals of movie stars. 众多 is an adjective meaning numerous, many, a huge number. 中国是人口众多的国家. China is a country with a huge population. 出众 describes a person or thing, literally above the crowd, outstanding, of exceptional ability. 她是个才华出众的女人. She's a woman of uncommon brilliance. And here we have a phrase, 大众化, which translates as popular, everyday, something in a popular style. 包子跟面食是大众化的食品. Steamed buns, noodles, and dumplings are popular and affordable foods. Another common idiom using the arrow is 矢口否认, meaning to flatly, straight out deny something. And for this idiom, we need to introduce another character unrelated to the arrow. It's based on the negative 不 that we learned a long time ago. So I'll quickly review it here. You should recall that 不 is the pictogram of a plant's growth being obstructed. And that's exactly what this new combination means. Not moving forward, refusing, denying. In ancient Chinese, 不 was a split sound character, sometimes pronounced fo. So that's why it's the purple phonetic element in this new character, also pronounced third tone fo, fo. Literally, say no. 扒手矢口否认，公事包是爬来的。The pickpocket flatly denied having stolen the briefcase. 不论你如何矢口否认，我都不相信。No matter how strongly you deny it, I cannot believe you. 不可否认 is the expression for something undeniable, indisputable. 不可否认，他生来就能得女人的心。It's undeniable that he's a natural woman magnet. Women just can't stay away from him. 别生气，我的话是不可否认的。Don't get angry. Everything I said is irrefutable. The phrase 否定 means negative, or as a verb, to negate or reject. 其他会员否定了我的主意。The other members rejected my idea. 两个否定就是相反，负负得正。Two negatives become the opposite. Two negatives equal a positive. And this character, 否, often appears together with other single characters, such as 可, 能, and 是。问题在他父母是否能制止他。The question is whether or not his parents can stop him. Instead of saying 是否能制止他, this sentence could also be written more succinctly. 能否制止他? One fewer character, but with the same meaning. Now we need to review the character 一 from lesson 14, because it enters into our next character. If you recall, 一 depicts the final hours of a mother's pregnancy with a fully developed fetus about to be born. The mother's body is no longer the focal point and does not appear. 一 means to stop, end, or the adverb already, originally the end of gestation or pregnancy. 一 contributes both sound and meaning to our next character. Not surprisingly, also pronounced third tone 一. The ideogram shows the arrow stopping because its target has been reached. It's most commonly found in classical Chinese, where it serves to indicate the end of a thought or a sentence, somewhat like a period or full stop. Ancient Chinese did not have what we would consider punctuation. They used single characters instead. Here's just one example of a man waxing lyrical about the woman in his life. 人生中有你，我心足矣。With you in my life, my soul is complete. It even rhymes in Chinese. What's more important is the following character, which pairs 一 with the hand radical to create first tone 'I' or second tone 'I'. Originally, it meant to attack someone by pushing them from behind. Sounds quite specific, but the modern meanings are still related. First tone 'I' means to come up close, go up next to, which would be necessary if you wanted to give someone a hard shove. Here are two examples. 挨着门口坐, to sit by the door. 我哥挨家挨户的去卖他的书. My brother went door to door to sell his book. Second tone, I, derives its meaning from the unlucky person being shoved, because it means to suffer a result, such as getting beaten 挨打, getting yelled at, 挨骂, or incurring a fine, 挨罚. 你会骂别人，就是不能挨骂. You can dish out verbal abuse, but you can't stand it when you're on the receiving end. 我为他卖力，反而挨了骂. I worked my butt off for him and get yelled at in return. 要想不挨打，眼睛就别看. If you don't want a beating yourself, then don't watch. Sounds like someone enjoys watching others being punished and then gets a warning. This sentence belongs in a novel or a movie script. 你若不想挨罚，就别在正门口停车. If you don't want a ticket, don't park at the main door. The next character in this lesson combines the arrow with the mouth and is pronounced first tone, zhi, zhi. In our Rekobon script, it originally depicted an ancestral altar next to an arrow and a mouth. The composition explained as a Shang dynasty ruler reporting an important incident to his ancestors. It eventually lost the ancestral altar and became the modern meaning to speak directly and without hesitation because one knows what occurred. Dictionaries usually translate this character as to know, to be familiar with, a person or thing. Here's a phrase about appearances and how they may be deceptive. 知人知面不知心. One may know a person's exterior, but not his or her heart. And another phrase indicating that someone has only superficial, limited knowledge of a problem. 知其一不知其二. To know only one aspect of a situation. 知名 is another expression for well known. 他是中国知名的画家. He's a well-known Chinese artist. 她不只是我太太，也是知心朋友. She's not only my wife, she's my closest friend. The expression 得知 means to find out or learn about something, literally, to obtain knowledge of. 他得知上面要差使他去日本. He learned that his supervisors were sending him to Japan. 知足 is a phrase to say that a person should know what they have is sufficient and content themselves with it. 你必须知足. You have to learn to be satisfied with what you've got. 你把我说成贪心不知足的人. You make me sound greedy and always wanting more. Our next four-character idiom is 可想而知. Literally, can think and know it. Or, in more colloquial English, you can well imagine. Or, it's obvious. 可想而知. 他成就使父母很得意. You can imagine how pleased his parents are with his success. Another idiom is 不知去向. Literally, don't know the direction it went. 我为爸爸画的肖像不知去向. I have no idea where my portrait of my dad went. 有了差事，出国的念头就不知去向. With a new job, his or her idea of going abroad has vanished. Here's an example of 须知, literally, must know, more accurately rendered as important information, which is then followed by a numbered list of requirements or regulations. 本银行开户须知. Information on opening an account at our bank. The next character in this lesson is the arrow radical next to 斗, the pictogram from lesson 40 of an ancient stemmed bowl for storing food. You will remember that this utensil became the name of the food once stored inside, namely legumes, beans, and peas. This new combination is pronounced third tone, duan, duan. The ancient Chinese not only used an arrow to represent accuracy and directness, but also to measure length. And when, like a yardstick, an arrow was placed next to a typical dou, the dou was always shorter. So, duan means short in English, with connotations of deficiency, a lack, a shortcoming, so to speak. Although its pronunciation has apparently diverged from ancient times, dou is the phonetic in duan, so I've colored it purple. 爸，你的背心太短了吧? Dad, your vest is too short, don't you think? 短时间内必须完工. Work must be completed within a short period of time. 在短时间内能否完成就不得而知. There's no way of knowing whether it can be finished in a short time. Notice the example of 得知 in a negative idiom, 不得而知, meaning unable to find out. The next character in this lesson consists of a steep cliff. Two person radicals, one on the left and one above the cliff, and the arrow. The original oracle bone pictogram showed an arrow being shot far away, literally way above the cliff. Later versions added the person on top, and later still the person radical to the left. This character is pronounced second tone, ho, ho. The original meaning was the skill of shooting arrows far into the distance, which was then extended to a noble dispatched on a mission far away by the king. Later it became the general term for the second highest rank of nobility in ancient China, known as zhu hou, the feudal princes and dukes under an emperor. 君王封他为诸侯. The monarch conferred a title of nobility upon him. 中国曾划分为7个诸侯国. China was at one time divided into 7 feudal kingdoms. Notice that I have used a variant form for 画, meaning to draw, this one containing a knife radical. Some Chinese make a distinction between the verb or noun 画, meaning to draw, and the verb 画, meaning to mark boundaries, to divide, with the latter definition adding the knife. Both characters were the same at one time, but school teachers like to emphasize the difference and require the distinction. So I've added it in this lesson. 划分, meaning to divide and lay boundaries, is a clear-cut example. Now, why did I put such a seemingly useless word for feudal nobility in this lesson? Because it's the origin of the next, much more common and useful character. Pronounced fourth tone, ho, ho. All of the possible mental associations of an arrow flying beyond a cliff are contained in this one. By the way, pay attention to the tiny distinction between ho and ho. The side of the cliff is complete but unattached in the center of ho. This is one reason Chinese and Japanese students usually do extremely well on tests of spatial, not special, spatial relationships. They immediately notice the tiny stroke that indicates a totally different character and meaning in their native language. Anyway, back to fourth tone ho, which necessarily involves the critical skill of carefully observing one's target and precisely aiming the arrow before releasing it. The phrase 守候 exemplifies this connotation of protecting and watching over someone. 女人天生就是一个家的守候者. Women are naturally the ones who keep watch over the family. 你没有出事，是因为有天使守候着你. Nothing happened to you because an angel was watching over you. 我男朋友说，他会一生守候着我. My boyfriend says he will forever be my supporter and protector. Carefully observing one's target and aiming for it also implies the expectation of catching it, which is why 候车 is the verb to wait for a bus or train, often seen on a sign above a waiting room or waiting area. In English, we can wait for someone to arrive. We can also wait on someone by watching them and anticipating their needs or inquiring as to their needs. In Chinese, 候 has the same extended sense of asking about someone's welfare. In the expression 问候, 他来信时都会向你问候. Every time he writes, he asks about you. 他得知您开刀了，就一直问候您. Once she heard about your operation, she's constantly asking after you. When aiming an arrow at a target, especially a running animal, one naturally must observe its movements before releasing the bowstring. Careful observation was key to a successful hunt. Likewise, observation of the weather was also necessary for hunting and growing crops. The ancient Chinese made their weather observations over a period of time, precisely 5 days, called a hou. 1 year was divided into 72 hou. That's 360 days, which is a pretty accurate calculation. For this reason, hou means to observe over a period of time. So, several time expressions include 时候. 有的时候雨会下1个月. Sometimes it rains for a month. 他小时候的朋友早就不知去向了. He lost contact with his childhood companions long ago. 必要的时候你可以打电话找我. If the need should arise, you can call and ask for me. And lastly, we have 气候, meaning the climate. 有人说英国的气候不好. Some people say that the English climate isn't very good. Here is our color chart with today's 10 characters. 始, 之, I, 后, 喉, 短, 重, 以, 画, and 否. Here's the takeaway from today's lesson. 1. 7 of today's 10 characters contain the arrow radical, a symbol of accuracy, truth, and directness. Taking an oath or making a promise is a natural extension, as found in 誓言. 2. 3 people under a hot sun is 重, later misinterpreted as a watchful eye overseeing peasants toiling in the fields. Together with the arrow, we have the expression 众矢之的, a person who becomes the target of public attacks. Other phrases with 重 include 公众, the public. 出众, outstanding, above the crowd. 众多, numerous. 大众化, popular, among everyday people. 3. 否 is another character added to create more phrases. 否 is the addition of a mouth under the negative 不, literally saying no. It's an important negative character, found in several expressions. 否认, to deny. 否定, negative in a grammatical context, or to reject. 可否, may or may not. 能否, able to or not. 是否, whether or not. 矢口否认, to deny outright. And 不可否认, undeniable. 4. We reviewed a previous character, 乙, the fully developed baby about to be born, meaning to stop or to end. 乙 enters into the composition of 乙 plus an arrow, literally the stopping point of the arrow. Also pronounced third tone 乙, this new character is common in ancient Chinese writing as a sort of punctuation, a period or full stop, meaning that the written thought has been fully expressed. It also serves as phonetic element in the character I, meaning near to, also pronounced I, meaning to suffer an abuse of some sort. 5. The arrow radical in combination with the mouth, 之, originally depicted the king reporting the facts of a situation directly to his ancestors. The character lost its original religious overtones, leaving behind the verb to know for a fact, and the noun knowledge, literally speak like an arrow, directly and with certainty. Phrases with 知 include 知名, well known, 知心朋友, a very close friend, 知足, to be content or satisfied, 须知, important information, 得知, to learn about, to find out, 不知去向, to disappear without a trace, 可想而知, obvious, easily imaginable. 6. By pairing the arrow with an ancient long-stemmed bowl called a 豆, the character 短 is created. Both the arrow and the 豆 were used as fixed measurements for short objects, with the 豆even shorter than the arrow. So this character came to mean short, with 豆suggested of shorter length and serving as the phonetic. We can now use the expression 短时间内, within a short time. 7. An arrow shooting far up over a steep cliff is the pictogram for 侯, and when two-person radicals were later added, it referred to nobles sent far away on missions by the king. These were the feudal princes and dukes under the emperor, called 诸侯. A feudal kingdom was a 诸侯国. 8. With an extra stroke in the center, a distinction was made between the characters for nobles, 侯, and fourth tone 后, the act of carefully observing a target and shooting it with an arrow. Useful phrases include 守候, to protect and watch over someone, 候车, to wait for a bus or train, which derives from the waiting for the right moment to release an arrow. 问候, to ask after someone's welfare, waiting on a person and anticipating his or her needs. 时候, a specific time, based on the observation of natural changes over 5-day periods. 气候, climate, the sum total of those 5-day periods over a year or more. Now you will find a short quiz on double, triple character, and longer expressions. Answer using only the characters learned so far. Thank you for watching and listening.